Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm very excited for today's video. I have my August reading wrap up to share with you, and I read 11 books throughout the month of August, and I had literally the best reading month I have ever had. I have so many 5 stars, and I promise I wasn't just trying to be like, you get a 5 star and you get a 5 star and you get a 5 star. And maybe I was just truly embracing the summer. My divorce was just finalized, so maybe I just had this extra energy, extra happiness, extra glow. And so it's just like so excited and happy in general that I was like I was just like, after I finished a book, I was like, well, life's so good, 5 stars. But I really had such a fun month of reading. I definitely still had a couple books that were like, nope, these were not good. But I'm very excited to share all of my thoughts with you guys today. I'm sorry I'm not sitting on my couch like I normally am, but I have a couple other beauty videos that I want to film today, and I didn't want to like move my camera and move my lights. And I wanted to make sure that I got this video filmed so that I can get it up in the first few days of August. All that rambling aside, if you guys are interested in seeing what books I read, as well as mini reviews, mini synopsis, and how I would rate them, stay tuned. First, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel and you like reading, I hope you'll consider subscribing before moving on. I also have a main beauty channel, which I'll leave link below in case you like makeup and beauty and aren't subscribed there. But let's get into my July wrap up of reading. If I said my August wrap up at the beginning, I apologize. All right, let's get into the video. Before we get into all of my reviews, I want to quickly go over my TBR from last month. So I will post the 10 books that I set out to read in the month of July. And I am very happy to say that I read 8 out of the 10 books. So that feels like an extremely successful reading month for me in terms of my TBR. And I told you guys that in order for me to earn books to buy, love a little challenge, that I have to read at least half of my TBR, which I did successfully complete, and then I can buy half of the total number of books that I read that month. So I read 11 books this month, so I'm gonna round down just to like try and control myself. So that means I can buy 5 books, or I've banked 5 books that I can buy. Last month in June, I earned 5 books as well, and I only purchased 1 book in the month of July. I purchased Dishonestly Yours by Kristen Becker Ritchie. So I still have 4 books from that bank. So now we're at 9 books that I'm allowing myself to buy. But that being said, let's get into the reviews. Okay, I do have a reading vlog that will, I think, come after this video, I believe. If it's already up, I'll leave it linked. Otherwise, it will be my next video. And some of the books that I'm sharing with you guys today are in that reading vlog, this being one of them. This is what I started the month of July out with. This is Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. And we started the month out with a 5-star read. I absolutely loved this. I actually ended up listening to this on audiobook, and I literally woke up at like 5:30 to 6 one morning to go on my morning walk. And I did 5 miles that day, as I try to do every weekend. And when I got back, I like sat down to like film for like my makeup channel. And so as I was getting ready, I was continuing to listen to this, and I literally just like listened to this straight. Like I didn't stop because I loved this so much. So in this book, you are following Allie, who is recently separated from her husband. And as I mentioned at the intro, I am recently divorced. So I do like books that touch on the topic of divorce because, you know, it's like, it's nice to read relatable things. Anyway, Allie is kind of like going through it. You find out that her mother had passed away either like a year or 2 ago, and then she's getting separated from her husband, and she is just like missing her mom so much. She's really struggling with the separation from her husband, who is just kind of a piece of work, and like doesn't really care to be involved with the kids' life. They have 2 kids, and he's just like literally only cares about himself and like is doing his own thing and doesn't really help. And so at the beginning of the book, Allie's friend encourages her to start dating, and she meets this guy, Ethan, at the dog park, and those two kind of hit it off, and you find out Ethan is a lawyer. And just the deep topics that this covers, like this is not just like a fluffy, lighthearted summer romance. There is a summer romance in here, but it is so much more than that. And I just loved this. I feel like Ethan is one of my new favorite book boyfriends. I loved him so much. And the relationship and chemistry between Ethan and Allie was just chef's kiss. I love Annabelle Monaghan's books because this is actually longer than her other 2. And all of her books have either been like 4.5 or above for me. They're short, sweet, simple, to the point. They're not like these 500-page romances. And yet I leave the book feeling like I have read a 5. Like I feel like I have so much information and so good. 5 stars, highly recommend that. The second book I read in the month of July was The Perfect Couple by Ellen Hildebrandt. This was also a 5-star read for me, and I remember finishing this book and I was like kind of going back and forth. I'm like, okay, I really loved this. I was so entertained, but like, is it a 5-star? And I feel like I left the book feeling like it was a 5-star, but I don't necessarily think this is gonna be a 5-star for everyone. So that's why I was like, and then I was like, okay girl, like it's your rating, so like you give it how the book made you feel. And what I loved about this is I am someone who loves like Vanderpump. I love reality TV, just like mindless, like just watching other people's messy lives unfold. I love. And so this had a lot of just like messy drama happening in this book, and I was just here for it. The vibes were right. It's set on Nantucket Island. I love Ellen Hildebrandt's writing. And so for me, I left this with the 5-star feeling. In this book, there is a couple set to be married, and you find out at the beginning of the book that there has been a death the day of the wedding, or basically the maid of honor's body is found like either in the wee hours of the morning the day that this couple is supposed to be married. And it kind of bounces between the police chief's perspective, or like the investigation's perspective, and then the perspective of the bride, the groom, and the families of the bride and groom, the friends, basically just different characters that are part of basically this wedding. And as I said, so this is another book that I read in the reading vlog, and I said in the reading vlog that every time like a new chapter with the police chief happened and they brought in a new character for like questioning, the book kind of led you to believe like, oh, it's definitely that character. So the whole book I'm like, who is it actually going to be? And meanwhile, again, you're kind of finding out, or you're learning more about each of the different characters and how just like messy and just like kind of awful some of the people are. And I was just here for every moment of it. Just messy rich people drama, yes. And I will say I was not expecting the ending of this, but I loved this. Such a fun summer read that's not just like a fluffy summer romance. It had this, basically it's like this mystery, and there's not really like a romance happening in this book. I absolutely loved this. Definitely a 5-star for me as well. And then the third book I read on my Kindle, and I'll post a picture of the cover right here, but I believe it's called 5 Rounds, and it's part of the Fight Game series by Nikki Castle. I was not expecting this to be a 5-star read, but I ate this up. I started this, I remember being home and literally was just sitting on my mom's patio reading, sun beating down on me, and like couldn't stop. The spice, so good, so good. But this really hit on some like triggering deep topics as well. There were like, I would check trigger warnings for this. There were things in there that just made me feel so angry, but the romance between the two characters, and of course I like am not remembering the two characters right now, but everything that happens in the book I absolutely loved. It's between two fighters, and oh, it's like kind of like grumpy sunshine. Like the male main character is definitely like very grumpy, but oh, I'm just like envisioning all of the like spicy scenes. So good. But essentially the female main character at the beginning of this book is kind of like kicked out of her apartment, and so she needs a place to live, and one of her best friends is leaving on like a work trip, and so he says he can stay like in his room while he's away working, because she did find another apartment that she's moving into, but there's like a 2-week gap. And the roommate of the friend that she's like moving into his apartment room for like a couple of weeks, they are like enemies, kind of like they just don't get along. And so obviously it's forced proximity, and I'm drooling. So good. Highly recommend that series, especially if you like sports books. I like this because I actually love MMA fighting. Like I love to watch it. And so just to kind of read a sports romance that wasn't like football or hockey was really fun. All right, so we started the month with 3 5 stars, and then we really took a dive. Then I read Shipwrecked by Olivia Dade. I'm very excited that this book is off of my TBR. It's been kind of sitting there. In fact, I think this is one of the books that is on my These Books Will Self-Destruct, which I've been meaning to film an update for, but I haven't yet. I need to. Many of the books on that list, I feel like I de-shelved, unhauled. I'm like, what am I trying to say? What did I end up rating this? Was it a 2 or a 3? 3. Okay. I ended up giving this a 3-star. I will say, as I was reading this, like the first half of the book, I was like, okay, this is feeling definitely like a 2-star sort of situation. And then it kind of picked up at the end. But overall, both of these characters just really kind of annoyed me. And I didn't find their relationship, like, I didn't care. Like, I did not care at all. So in this book, you were following Maria and Peter. Both of them are actors, and at the literally the first chapter, the first scene is them hooking up in this sauna, and they don't know who each other are. And then I think they like go to Peter's house. Like, I feel like they have a one-night stand in Peter's house. It was either that or it happened in the sauna, and then they both went their separate ways. But he really wanted to like get Maria's number, and then come to find out they're both at like the same audition. They end up cast for this show that is like filmed on like a desolate island, so they're basically just like stuck there together with the rest of the cast. And the show is like a 6-year show. Like it goes on for like 6 years. Granted, they have like off times. I like literally didn't care for this at all. It like, but I will say it was like entertaining at times, which is why I gave it a 3-star, because I feel like some people would like this. For me, I was just really bored, and so, but it wasn't like, it wasn't awful. It wasn't like a 2-star to me is like truly awful. Like, it was entertaining, but more like the second half of the book. And I do think that there are people out there that would really like this book. It wasn't me. Then we picked right back up again, and I read The Last Mrs. Parrish, 5 stars. I freaking loved this. And again, messy rich people drama. This is a psychological thriller. I would classify it as a psychological thriller, and it's definitely giving Gone Girl vibes. Like, it's not a parallel, but like it's giving Gone Girl, but like not. I don't know how, I will say the second half of the book, like we take a turn, and like I was not at all expecting what happens the second. Like, I was like, wait, what? And it's so good. And I don't feel like I can say a whole lot without like ruining it. But in this book, you are following Amber, who is kind of just like fed up with her life, and she really has it out for like rich people. Like, she does not like rich people, or like she wants to be a rich person. So I shouldn't say she doesn't like rich people, but like she has it out for them. So anyway, she basically starts like, I don't want to say stalking, but like kind of stalking this girl, Daphne Parrish. Starts stalking her, kind of like inserts her into Daphne's life, and then is basically trying to take Daphne's husband from her. But that is like, that's all I feel like I can say. But there's so much more to this book, and I loved this so much. Definitely made me want to like find more books like this, like psychological thrillers. So if you have any recommendations for good psychological thrillers, let me know. My hair is really bothering me. Can you tell? I like tried to like tease it. Like, we're talking like Snooki level tease to like give me a little volume, but I feel like it's just, it did not come to fruition how I wished. And then right after reading The Last Mrs. Parrish, I listened to The Next Mrs. Parrish, which I believe just released this year. Loved this too, 5 stars. At the beginning of The Next Mrs. Parrish, I was really kind of not feeling like I was going to give it 5 stars, because I was like, I don't know what direction this is really going. Like, I feel like maybe we should have just like not had a second book. But by the end of it, I was like, I might even like the second book better than the first book, because Daisy Ann in the second book, I really did not know where we were going with her character, but loved the second book. And I cannot say much at all because it will ruin the first book. All right, then we took a turn again. And I feel like I'm supposed to really like this book. And I was like reading some of the Goodreads reviews afterwards, because I was like, am I literally alone in this? Like, was it just me? And then I read like some of the like 1-star or 2-star reviews that were like, I'm supposed to like this, but like I was relating so hard. So this is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan, which I've read one other Kennedy Ryan book before, and I really actually liked it. It was extremely triggering. It was Blockshot, and I like thought that that was just gonna be like the fluffy sports romance. It is absolutely not, but I really liked that. And so I was nervous going into this. I didn't look up trigger warnings or anything like that. And I will say this isn't like, you should look up trigger warnings, but this was not triggering in the way that Blockshot was. This book, you're following Yasmin and Josiah, who divorced 2 years ago, but they own a restaurant together and they have 2 kids. So it's basically like at the beginning of the book, you're literally thrown in like 2 years post-divorce. And it's them kind of like navigating their relationship post-divorce while still owning a business together. And I don't know if it's just me, and like, I think I have a problem with relationships that like, they definitely had problems in the relationship, but when a male main character is just like, there's no flaws, I just cannot buy into the story. Like, males are just not good people, mostly. Like, yes, there are good ones out there, but like, so anyway, I just felt like Josiah really irritated me as a character. I just like did not care for him. Like, I just felt like he was kind of a pushover, but then like also he did things that like I didn't like. And then Yasmin was just extremely annoying in my opinion. So when you don't like each of the characters already, it's really hard to kind of like root for the characters. And oh, I don't know if this is like, okay, soon one stolen kiss leads to another. Okay, kind of like alludes to the fact of like them hooking up. There was a moment where I was like reading one of the spicy scenes in here and I literally thought I was gonna throw up. Like, I got the ick the worst I ever have. Like, I was feeling like I needed a barf bucket. I did not like this book. I did give this a 2 stars because I actually think, and a lot of people do really like this book. For me, it just, there was something about it, maybe like because they were a divorced couple getting along, like I just could not relate, but this did not work for me. So that was a 2-star read. All right, then I read Throttled by Lauren Asher, and I was a little bit nervous going into this because I feel like I've heard mixed reviews on this. Like, I feel like I've heard people talk about liking this, but then I hear people give it like a 3-star or just saying it was like so-so. And I get really nervous about 3-star like reviews or like so-so feelings, because for me, sometimes those like 3-star books are really hard for me to push through and read. Like, if a book is a 3-star for me, that for me is not really a great rating, and oftentimes it means I'm bored, not interested, and it just takes me longer to read. So I was a little bit nervous going into this. I will say I ended up rating this a 3.75 stars, and I was really kind of toggling between like a 4-star and a 3.75, but there were just moments of this book that I don't want to say I was disinterested, but I was just like a little bit annoyed at the relationship between the 2 characters. I was just like, okay, like we get it, like we do get it. And there's some moments that I feel like are just too cutesy and so unrealistic that I'm just like, okay. But in this book, this is the first book in the Dirty Air series, and I definitely want to continue on in the Dirty Air series, which, by the way, this book was gifted to me by Emily from Emily and Max is her makeup channel, and then McKinnis Mama is her book channel. So thank you so much, Emily, for gifting me this book. I loved reading it. But you're following Maya and Noah in this book, and you learn that Noah is this F1 racer, and at the beginning of the book, he and Maya's brother are in a race, and Maya's brother does something, I think, that makes Noah's car crash, I believe. And essentially, like, Noah doesn't win the race. And so there's already like this tension between Maya's brother and Noah, and then they end up on the same F1 team. We also learn that Maya is kind of like taking a break off of, like, she just graduated college, I believe. Clearly some details escape me at times. Either that, or she's like taking a year off between college and high school, and but she's 23. She must have just graduated high school or college. And she is basically just gonna travel with her brother, and she also does social media. So she was like, oh, I'm just gonna like vlog traveling with you. And so over time, like, Maya and Noah, like, they start out kind of as enemies because Maya doesn't like the way that Noah treats her brother, and then Noah like basically has it out for the 2 of them because he doesn't like losing. But obviously a romance kindles, and I really enjoyed the romance, the spice, but it just wasn't quite a 4-star for me. So 3.75 for that. Then we're back to a 5-star. I read All In, which is the 3rd book in the Natural series, and this is my favorite book so far in the series. I haven't rated to date until this book any of the books 5 stars, but it does feel like a 5-star series to me. And this was a 5-star. So this book is set in Vegas, which I absolutely love Las Vegas. So already the setting was like getting me. But if you're unfamiliar with this series, it's essentially following 5 characters who are all like 17, 18 years old, who have this natural ability. There's like some of them that can read people really well, read emotions, tell if people are lying, are really good with numbers, things like that. And they were hired by the FBI to help solve cold cases, but naturally over time, it's like progressed into like not just cold cases. And so there are these murders happening and they believe that there is a serial killer. So they go to Las Vegas to basically hopefully catch this serial killer. And these books are just so fun, so fast paced, so easy to read. I don't want to say too much because it's the 3rd book in the series and I don't want to ruin anything or give it away, but I love the series, highly recommend. And that was another 5-star. Then I read another book on my Kindle and I finally read The Right Move by Liz Tomforde or Tomfordy, I'm not sure. I was so excited to read this, but I was a little skeptical because Mile High for me was like a 2-star read. Like I did not like that book. It was way too long. Literally, like I swear chapters were like copy and pasted. Like we were getting regurgitated information over and over and over and over and over again. And I was like, what is this? But so many people raved about the right Move and Ryan Shea. And so I was like, I want to know for myself. I love sports, so I'm gonna give this one a go. Way too long. I feel like this book could have ended at the 80% mark and it would have been like, we would have been good to go. We would have been good. We would have been good. The last 20% was like just more words and like I don't feel like it added really anything to the story. Like I literally feel like we could have wrapped the book up at the 80% mark, maybe taken a few of the bits at the very end and like squished them into like the last 75, 80%. We would have had a book at the 80% mark. And the epilogue, I was just like, the epilogue, I am not someone who really cares for an epilogue. Most of the time I'm just like, let's end it. But this epilogue specifically, I was just like, this is just way too fluffy and just way too much like literally hand me a barf bucket, we get it. I just did not care for the epilogue at all. I feel like some people probably would really like the epilogue. I gave this book did I give it a 3 or 3.5? I gave it a 3.5. All that to say, those are my negative feelings. I did give it a 3.5. For the most part, I was really entertained by this book. I get why people really like Ryan Shea. Again, as I mentioned, I'm someone who just needs like a little toxicity in my life. I need a man that's gonna like push back a little bit, not like fist thrown, but like push back a little, argue with me. That's the type of thing, like my love language is a good argument and some tacos. Like feed me and argue with me. That says a lot about me, I know. I am the problem, I do understand. But I almost felt like Ryan Shea was just like too perfect. And then Indy just like, she was just too much of like a frou-frou, like, I get being a people pleaser. I don't know, I just like some of her inner monologue, I was just like, we wouldn't be friends in the real life. But I still was entertained. Like I still was entertained the majority of the book. I will say the spicy scenes in this book, like I feel like there's some spice I really love to read and then there's other spice that I'm just like, like can we get this over with? And I wasn't like as into like their spice. I believed in their relationship, but at the same time I was like, these two are almost too perfect. I feel like they're like not gonna have a disagreement, even though I know they had disagreements, but I was just like, the disagreements they had, I was like, and they also like, they just like had a disagreement and then like they talked it out. Like that's not normal. Or again, the problem is me, but I like to read about toxic relationships clearly. Still 3.5 wasn't my favorite, but it was definitely better than Mile High in my opinion. And I am really excited to read Caught Up, which I believe is, it's baseball, which is not my favorite sport, but like I believe it's a nanny, and I'm like, okay, I feel like I could be down for that. And then to end the month, I read Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I buddy read this with Emily, who gifted me Throttled. And okay, I read this for my reading vlog and I don't want to spoil this. I don't want to spoil it, but a lot of the books that I read in that reading vlog were 5 stars. Many of the books that I've already shared with you. Oh shoot, I feel like I should put my reading vlog up first then. I feel like I should. Maybe I will do that. Okay, so then you'll already know if you saw that, or maybe you don't know. But all 4 of the books that I had read prior to this, and this was my last book to get a bingo, all 4 of those books were 5 stars. So I feel like I was feeling not like pressured, but I was like, oh, I could have 5 stars. So I already, like, there was a lot of hype around this book. I felt like going into this book, it could be a 5-star. And so I feel like I wanted to give it a 5-star for that reason, but there were definitely things missing from this book that just left me wanting just a little bit more information and just a little bit more specifically surrounding the trials. Like, when did we start doing trials? How are people nominated? Why were people nominated? I wanted a little bit more background on just like the Imperials and the Ordinary. Like, I just wanted a little bit more information and a little bit more background. And so it just left me with a few questions after reading this that just made me feel like I can't give this a 5-star, but 4.5. Still absolutely loved this. I will say the second half of the book was so fast paced, and like, I just didn't want to put the book down. I wanted to know what happened. I will be really curious to see, is there gonna be like a love triangle? Because I'm getting like a bit of love triangle feelings, but I'm like, is it a love triangle or is it not a love triangle? Like, what's the dealio? The epilogue in this book, great. This is an epilogue I can get down with. I loved it. Made me want to run out and purchase the next book. And I will say the twist in this book I didn't predict, but after reading it I was like, oh, I definitely should have seen that coming. If you like the Hunger Games, this will feel really nostalgic to you. I think you will really enjoy this book. There's definitely a lot of similarities. I feel like Lauren Roberts had to have drawn inspiration from the Hunger Games, and if she didn't, then like, I would just be very surprised if she didn't. I'll be very curious to see the direction that this goes. Like, will it still parallel some of the Hunger Games-esque type of things? What's gonna happen in the future? But 4.5, still really enjoyed this. It just did not quite leave me with that 5-star feeling. But this was the 11th and final book that I've read in the month of July. I am already so excited for the month of August. That is going to wrap up and conclude today's video. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to watch and for supporting me and my channel, as you guys always do. I'd love to know in the comments below what books you read this month, what was good, what was not good, what should I not read, what should I read. Let a girl know in the comments. Thank you guys so much, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.